Hey everyone, it's Kerene Tayloe with Plans of My Love Language. And as promised, I will be having this podcast where I'm bringing in different travel experts, different people who enjoy just getting out there and getting stamps in their passport. And my first guest is Miss Angela Addae. Hey Angela.
Hello.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you making time. I know we're all busy, but you and I share something or a few things in common. Not only do we love travel, but we also are alums of Fisk University and members of the greatest sorority in the world, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And through both of those avenues, Fisk and Delta, that's how we're connected. But specifically, the idea of traveling to Ghana came up, and your name came up as someone who would be an ideal contact to help us, figure out how to get to Ghana because that's something you've been doing for years. And so today we're just going to talk about what brought you to that. How'd you start planning trips? Why'd you start your travel company? And then we'll just talk about some of the connections that Fisk University has to Ghana. So I'm going to give it to you. Just tell us about yourself, more about you.
Sure. So my name is Angela Adai. I love all things Black, including Black travel, Black people, Black businesses. And I find that I'm able to express that through my company, Onyx Group, which is a travel based company that really celebrates Black entrepreneurship, Black kinship, and Black art. And it really is a creative avenue for myself and the people that I work with to express our love for Black people. We strive to connect Black people throughout the diaspora and give them an opportunity to experience what it feels like to be in a space that is also welcoming and that embraces Blackness. And so that space for us is Ghana. And so we invite people to join us on trips to Ghana where they get to explore Ghana from a historical perspective, a cultural perspective, a creative perspective, and certainly from just a leisure, recreational, fun perspective as well.
So let's level set. You used a term that some of us may know, but there's probably a number of people new to traveling to Africa that they may not be aware of. Can you just kind of give a summary of what the diaspora is and what it means to you specifically around travel?
Sure. So, in our context, when I refer to the Black diaspora, I'm talking about people of Africa and their descendants. So, we have had people who have traveled with us from the Caribbean, Bahamas, Jamaica, from Haiti, from North America. So, there's all sorts of ways in which people can engage with Africa and from a diasporic perspective. But largely, this idea of if you think of Africa as your ancestral home, then that's what we're thinking of as the diaspora. So it's an opportunity to connect people from that diaspora, and that includes people on the continent. Not to exclude the Black people on the continent. I feel like there is this big divide, especially now. There's this whole movement around effectively dividing Black people, right, based on nationality, and so we're trying to reverse that, trying to show people where we are connected and also celebrate our differences, right? Recognizing that people, Black people all across the world, have different lived experiences, and they bring some unique components of their cultures and experiences and histories. But when we bring that all together and we are just kind of exploring those differences and celebrating those differences in a way that also highlights our similar values and our similar expressions of those things: creativity, hustle, art, family, all of those things that are these sort of mutual values really come to surface when we come together. And so for us, it's all about rooting for everybody Black, to quote Issa Rae, celebrating what Blackness looks like in all its forms, whether that's in North America, whether that's in Europe, whether that's in Australia, whether that is in the Caribbean or on the
Yeah.
continent. Yeah.
I appreciate that summary. And right before we started, we were just talking about Ghanaian seasoning and how you all start with the roux. And then, like, when you were giving me the ingredients, I was like, that sounds like something we do in Jamaica. And, all the ways that our food and our culture and our music connect. So thanks for giving that summary. So when we think about travel and the broader view of it, particularly for Black people, like we said, in the diaspora. So here we're going to talk specifically for those of us that are here in North America. Why has Ghana become such an attractive place for Black people to visit?
So Ghana is no stranger to the Black American experience. Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, was one inspired by the civil rights movement that was happening in the United States and used that to kind of fuel the independence movement for Ghana. So that's first. And then second, he was also a graduate of Lincoln University, a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. And so, just Ghana's origins as a sovereign nation, a sovereign independent nation, were influenced by Black Americans in the movement for social justice and civil rights in the United States. And that liberation movement, this context of like a unified Blackness, was something that was really prevalent throughout the 1950s and 1960s when a lot of African nations and also, let's say, the Black African nation, right, were trying to pursue liberation in a broader form. So there was a lot of exchange. I mean, W.E.B. Du Bois and Richard Wright and Maya Angelou and Muhammad Ali all have had conversations or were really fundamental in the conversations around Black liberation and Pan Africanism in West Africa. And Ghana was certainly a leader in that movement.
And so for you, what does traveling and going back to Ghana mean for you? And why all of a sudden, or maybe it's not all of a sudden, but why then have you then gone into having your own travel company?
Sure. So why me? Why now? That's a great question. One is that I'll just say, so myself, I grew up as a Ghanaian American. And I was born in Arkansas, moved to Mississippi, and went to college in Tennessee. And so I grew up in the deep South and was quite molded and shaped by those experiences. And more specifically, I like to say I grew up on HBCU campuses. The things that led me to those different places were all historically Black institutions. From Arkansas, I was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, the home of, the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Golden Lions, and then I moved to Mississippi, and what drew our family to Mississippi was Alcorn State University, the home of the Braves, and then when I moved to Nashville, it was to attend and matriculate at Fisk University, home of the Bulldogs. And so my whole life and my whole trajectory has really been shaped by the Black American experiences, specifically HBCU experiences. And so that's all love, right? When you think about Black people in their kind of element, for me, it's being at HBCU, right? Being able to fully be themselves, experience life from a place of liberation and freedom, and growing up in predominantly Black towns in the South where my mayor was Black, my teachers were Black, my principal was Black, my sheriff was Black, my doctors were Black, and so being able to just move about in these predominantly Black spaces, whether it was in my town, in my city, or in my school, or in my parents' workplaces, that really shaped my strong love and appreciation for all things Black. And that being said, we also had this cultural heritage of being Ghanaian that was influencing our household. It was shaping, who we thought of as our uncles and aunties. It shaped what type of food we ate, what type of music our parents listened to, what type of clothing we wear. I grew up, I feel like now the African fabrics and symbols are like really popular. I have baby pictures and those things because that's what I grew up wearing and celebrating the homeland. As for our parents, that was home. And so we always knew about our family back at home, always yearned to visit there, appreciated, and celebrated the wins that were happening across the ocean. And so all of that just kind of came together for me. I guess it wasn't a linear path. It wasn't one particular point. I kind of had been hosting people. Anytime I would go to Ghana, people know about it. So they would hear about my trips. Hey, can I come with you next time? When are you going? When are you going next? Can I come? Can I come? So I would always, almost every time, bring a friend or two when I would go visit Ghana. And they had a great time. I had a great time. I would say another fundamental portion was when I was at Fisk and myself and 6 other Fiskites studied abroad in Ghana for a semester at the University of Ghana, Legon, and which is based in Accra. And that was also a transformative experience because I got to see and experience Ghana as a first generation Ghanaian, but on my own independent terms as a college student with my friends from my HBCU. So to see Ghana through my own independence lens and then see it through their lens and having them with me and kind of us forging our own experiences through that study abroad, it just made me realize I want to do this all the time. Like I always
Mm,
want to be here with my friends because we had so much fun. We really embraced the culture. I was able to be a translator for them, you know, between like the culture shock, really like the cultural nuances. I was able to say, "Oh, that doesn't mean that. That means this," you know. Not necessarily from a language point, but from a cultural point, like mannerisms and expectations and things like that. You know, in Ghana, we don't shake hands with our left hand. That's considered rude, right? But somebody who might not be from Ghana might not understand why somebody is like balking at their left hand, for example.
yeah.
So things like that, my own experiences with study abroad, my experiences with my friends just coming and me hosting them in Ghana, me getting married and my friends coming to my wedding in Ghana, all kind of led up to this idea of I want to stay in this space of connecting Black people wherever they are from with Ghana as a unique special place to celebrate Blackness.
So now that you've transitioned from just bringing friends along or visiting as a student, what does the curating process look like now that you are a business owner and that is the goal to bring people there but do it in a professional way? How does that look different or does it look different?
In some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. And the ways that are similar is that I try to get to know each of my guests prior to them visiting. And so when it's a friend, it's very easy because I can say, "Oh, I know you're a history buff. You would love this," right? Or I know just the place for you. But when it's a person that I hadn't met before, someone who's new to me, I spend a lot of time talking to them, getting to know them, trying to understand on an individual level what type of traveler they are. Now that I'm moving around, you know, before I used to be very picky about who I would even invite to come with me to Ghana because not everyone has the same travel style as I do. And so travel styles are really important, especially for the novice traveler who is still trying to figure out their travel style. And by travel styles, I mean you have people who are quite adventurous and you know are wanting to explore anything and everything, and then you have people who are a little bit more measured and wanting to explore things but in a way that is reassuring and secure. You have people who really need a lot of structure in a travel experience and want to know what to expect and you know need really kind of a layout of how things are go. They want to be able to anticipate things as they come. And then you have other people who are just like completely let go of the reins and just take the day or take the experience as it comes. So getting to know people's travel personality is a really fundamental part of the curating experience. And that way everyone's comfortable in whatever that travel personality might be. And I feel like I'm pretty confident in catering to different types of travel personalities. So that's a big one.
So as you talk about traveling travel styles for a group where everyone is different and we've got different age ranges, we've got different mobility, all of these kinds of things. How do you take all that into consideration in building out a trip that will feed the really like adventurous person versus the person that, wants to kind of stay on the line, so to speak, and isn't really interested in doing anything that's too wild, but still give them a middle of the road experience that meets all of those needs? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I describe my experiences as cultural immersion. So to some extent, I can't shield everyone from everything that might make them
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but that's sort of the kind of the challenge. I want people to be able to step outside of their comfort zone a little bit, but not in a way that would drastically change their experience in a harmful way. So with a group, again, it is really getting to know everyone and then building an itinerary around just that, the different demographics and characteristics of the group. So if there are some people who want to be more adventurous, we provide opportunities for adventure and we provide opportunities for free flow. We we make ourselves available as hosts to stay with. For example, some people might want to go here and some people might want to go here. We give them options and say, hey, some people are going to do this. If you want to do that, feel free to go. But here's some other structured activity if that's not something you're interested in. For example, it's a lot of work. Even as I'm kind of describing it, it's almost difficult to capture the intentionality that goes
Yeah.
into it because it's so nuanced and it's really responsive to everything that's happening on the ground. And so people who like structure, we give them structure, right? We give them options, we hold their hands, and we also show them ways in which they can feel empowered to make the decisions that make them feel comfortable. Safety is a priority for us, so we're making sure that everyone's safe and everyone's comfortable. And Ghana has a way of wrapping its arms around people. People get there, and even if they might be a apprehensive traveler to begin with, there's something that happens in Ghana where people just kind of like get there and then they can breathe. They relax. They see that they're safe. They see that they're home. They see that people are welcoming. They see that people are hospitable. And it's like a breath of fresh air. So a lot of times you don't even realize like that you're holding this tension in your body, or you're holding
Mm.
these insecurities or this anxiety around the unknown until you get there and you're like, I was worried about nothing.
Mm.
Especially with travel to Africa, where I feel like prior to the last, let's say, 5 years or so, there wasn't a lot of visual imagery, social media content, even anecdotal stories about people traveling to Africa. People might not have ever known anyone to go to Africa. They might feel like they're the first ones, or they may know somebody who knows somebody, that type of thing. But it wasn't really in the spotlight like it is today, which is still not
Yeah.
mainstream even today. People now are starting to at least know people who've gone, who've come back safely, who've had a great time, who are recommending it. And I think that um, helps shape some of the narratives around traveling to Africa too.
I appreciate you talking about what the mainstream perspective is of Africa. As I've been growing in the travel space, what I've seen a lot of, I guess, mainstream. And when we say mainstream, honestly, that's white led or white owned companies. When they talk about Africa, it's usually in the lens of a safari hunt, or, yeah, it's mainly safaris, or like going into the reserves or the forest or whatever and hunting and things like that. How do we explain and look at the dichotomy of that experience? Because for Black people that I know that are going to the continent, they're not going for any of those things. So how do you function in it in terms of educating people that there's more to Africa than just those things?
Yeah, so the challenge is that many of those places have established those type of excursions as a driver of capital and built out a tourist infrastructure in accordance to that. For Black people, Black Americans especially, traveling to, and I'm only going to speak for Ghana. Africa is so big.
It's so big.
There's so many
Mhm.
diverse countries in Africa, and many of them are on my bucket list too. So I'll speak specifically for Ghana, that Ghana has been drawing in Black Americans of late because of this pursuit of the historical ties, the historical knowledge, and even like the ancestral ties for some. So that's a very different sentiment versus just kind of like your leisure recreational traveler who might go to a safari or might go to um, you know, an excursion in other places. Even though you visit those places, you're not thinking necessarily of them as your home. You're thinking of them as just as a destination as opposed to like a
Mhm.
home. And
Yeah.
so Ghana is welcoming people home, and so they're drawing on this sort of sentimental value, the sentimental culture, this emotional appeal that's much just different from kind of recreation or leisure that we normally drive travelers. So now people are finding ways to capitalize on that emotional appeal, right? Bringing people, and Ghana is also responding by building out its tourist infrastructure in terms of lodging, excursions. It's really blowing up. Places to go, things to do outside of just the cultural ancestral connections.
So it's November. We're heading into Thanksgiving, but we're also heading into December, which is a really big month for Ghana in terms of travel and that industry. Can you talk a little bit about what December looks like in Ghana?
I like to tell people that December in Ghana looks like spring break in Cancun or spring break in Miami.
Mm.
It's it's all about fun. People are flocking to Ghana in droves to experience Detty December, which now is expanding to other nations on the continent. I hear people talking about going to Nigeria and South Africa as well. But Ghana is really the hub for just the best entertainment you could ever imagine. I mean, in terms of nightlife entertainment. But there's a different energy in December that people need to be cautious of because it can suck you in. You might not want to go home. You might
Yeah.
like it's nothing to play with. Like, have you ever been up into a place where you just did not want to leave? Like, that's kind of dangerous a little bit because we all have jobs that we need to come back to, or people or responsibilities that we need to come back to. But Detty December is just a lot of fun, and it's another place for connection, especially because you really do have people from the diaspora coming all into Ghana from the UK, from the United States. I last time I was in Detty December, I met someone from Belgium. The DJ was Haitian. So there was just like a lot of ways in which people from all over the world are coming into this country to celebrate the end of a year and beginning of a new one. And Ghana has really taken up the charge to like make that a really amazing experience. It's fun, it's safe, it's electrifying. It's expensive. A lot of people don't talk about that part, but I'll say it's expensive.
Yeah.
And getting to be a little bit more costly than what we've seen in the past. But it's definitely an experience of a lifetime if people have never experienced it before. I,
So beyond Detty December, what are some other kinds of initiatives or programs that Ghana has put in place that's really been drawing people back in a really holistic way?
Yeah, so in 2019, Ghana launched a really big campaign called the Year of Return, which celebrated 400 years since 1619, the beginning of the slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade, and that really just kind of extended an invitation to specifically Black Americans to come back to Ghana and experience Ghana as an ancestral homeland. And that campaign was really successful, brought in, hundreds of thousands of Black Americans to visit Ghana and learn about Ghana's cultural history and their connections with the broader diaspora. After that, there was a campaign launched by the government called Beyond the Return, where they sort of built upon the momentum of the Year of Return and continued these ongoing initiatives to support Black Americans in particular to not only come back and visit Ghana, but also invest in Ghana in terms of real estate, businesses, human capital, social capital, economic capital investment. And I think that was also really successful. Ghana recently had an election last year, and there's a new administration who has sort of expanded on again the increasing interest of people coming to Ghana, and they're calling it the Black Star experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, well, Black Star has a couple different meanings, but one is that Ghana's flag has a black star in the middle of it, in the center. And then also Marcus Garvey had an initiative that was also around kind of the black star. So again, building on this very long standing connection and tie between Black Americans and Black Americans' interest in the broader continent, and also Ghana's role in history as a site of atrocity
Mm.
prior to the transatlantic slave trade. But now Ghana is sort of thinking of itself and repositioning itself as a person a place rather, a nation who is recouping or retrying to recover the severed ties between Black Americans and Ghanaians born in on the continent.
Okay. So also, for people who are planning their trip, we've already discussed Detty December as a really high activity time, but we've also shared that it's expensive and you can get sucked in and all of these good and pros and cons and things. But when we look at the whole year for a traveler that wants to come, how should they look at the year in terms of the ideal time for them versus maybe rainy season? Like, what should people know about the best time to come?
I think year round is the best time to come. I don't think there's any best time or worst time to come. I think the best time is probably the time that you can afford. Prices do fluctuate again. I mentioned let's talk about that because it's just expensive to travel to Africa as opposed to other parts of the world. You could get,
Mm,
getting to Europe is so easy and
hmm.
relatively accessible because of the number of flights, the number of airlines, all these things that it's just so easy to get there and therefore the costs reflect that. But in Africa, it's almost like an aviation desert in
Mm,
the way that even getting to a place, right? There's not very many direct flights between the United States and Accra, for example. I saw recently that Delta Airlines added an Atlanta leg, which is exciting. So it's like, oh, we got another direct flight because you
hmm.
don't have very many.
Yeah.
Um, Before it was just JFK
JFK.
and Dulles, and now Atlanta.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, can we get something from the West Coast?
Oh, are there from the West Coast? Because that's far.
Now, as
Okay.
far as so those of us who live out west have
Yeah.
to go to the East Coast if we want to get a direct flight to Accra, then it's no longer a direct flight.
Okay.
Um, so just getting there is a challenge, right? And then you have to have a visa.
Mm.
Usually in the Detty December, the tourism authority alters or revises the visa requirement, so allowing people to get visas when they arrive in Ghana. But prior to that, you have to, or outside of that very limited window, which is about a month, like December and January, you have to get a pre-authorized visa, which means that you have to send your passport to a consulate or a embassy, get the visa and they'll send it back to you in the mail. So it's not an easy, simple, really way to travel for people who are used to just packing their bags and hopping on a plane.
How much is the visa?
A visa is about dependent. There's different types of visas, but it can run between $80 for a single use visa
Hmm.
and $150 for a multiple entry visa.
Okay.
So there are so it's not easy. And then you also have to have vaccines. You have to have a yellow fever vaccination, and they require proof of the yellow fever vaccination when you enter into the country, unless you have an exception from a medical provider or something like that. But so I'm saying all that to say that the best time to go is the time that you can commit to planning a trip, and you can afford it. If you want to have fun and you want to be amongst, uh, you know, tens of thousands of visitors to the country, Detty December is certainly the time. For some people, that sounds like a nightmare, right? Some people that so it just depends on who you are and the type of traveler you are, right? Like you want to go and you want to be the mix and you want to be surrounded by everyone else and in the crowds, and that can be energizing for some and depleting for others.
Hmm.
So more quiet times of the year. Summer is really popular and I like to go in the summer. Easter is really big in Ghana. So people who really care about the more like traditional cultural practices where they have lots of festivals and things like that. That's Easter is a big time for that. Also, end of August or August, the whole month of August is where different regions have different cultural festivals. So you kind of get to see some of their really traditional practices. That's exciting. And then I've also traveled in November where it can be really hot, but much more affordable, much more slower. You really get to kind of engage with people at a different pace than you normally would. So there's no bad time necessarily, but it certainly matters how much you can get a flight for
Hmm.
and how you like to travel. What are you looking for out of the experience? You mentioned the rainy season. The rainy season is usually in the kind of summertime where there'll be a heavy downpour and then they'll stop. The rain will stop and it'll dry up. But the rainy season, though kind of inconvenient in terms of moving around, if it's pouring raining, it's good for the nature excursion. So if you want to visit waterfalls and things like that, you get to see the waterfalls at their fullest potential in
Mm,
the rainy season versus if you go in the dry season towards the end of the year that you might get like a little trickle and you might be disappointed if you're going to see a waterfall. So
okay.
it just depends on what people are looking for out of their experience.
What is Ghana like for family travelers, like people who are traveling with their kids, yeah, like multi-family kind of situations?
Yeah, so it's good. Ghana is a society, right? It's a society that is welcoming of children and is welcoming of youth, is welcoming of senior citizens, people who I've had all of them. I've hosted all of them. I've had my youngest guest has been 3 years old, apart from my own son who's been when he was 8 months, and then I've hosted retirees, and so and they've all had a blast, right? And it's because they can all find their space in Ghana. Ghana has so much to offer for everyone. There are lots of kids everywhere all the time, which makes it fun for kids to kind of see themselves as part of the society. And then same thing for our older folks. They can enjoy the pace that they want to enjoy, and dive into the historical stuff, and not to leave them out of the entertainment. They have fun too, by the way, because there are all sorts of nightlife venues where there's live music and cover bands and things like that. So people have been the old folks dancing with the young folks all in the same place. So it's certainly a family friendly space in terms of things to do, things to learn, things to experience. People like to shop as well. That's another big draw. So
Hmm.
it's something for everyone.
Just thinking broader, for people with mobility issues or concerns, what are some of the expectations or limitations that they might even experience?
Yeah, so that mobility concerns are things that are helpful for the host to know and plan for. And so usually people don't have they don't have to navigate that. It's usually us as the hosts who are
Hmm.
navigating mobility concerns. But certainly Ghana doesn't have the ADA, right? Like we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that provides guidelines for accommodations and things like that in public spaces. Ghana doesn't have a version of that necessarily. So you might find that a hotel might not have an elevator, for
Hmm.
example, or there might not be accessible sidewalks. There might not be accessible sidewalks to get around. So all the things we take for granted,
Yeah.
frankly, we take for granted the ways in which accessibility is a really important component of our society, and the inclusion around people with different abilities is something that is not as apparent there. That being said, the you know like walking a lot is something that people do, for example. So people who might have mobility issues, we certainly accommodate them with making sure they have transportation and are able to get to where they need to be, and making sure that they have a room on the ground floor and things like that we take on the responsibility as hosts to make sure everyone feels included.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking is you and I have been discussing this for the better part of this year, but we are working together, coming together to plan a Fisk University trip to Ghana. Fiskites in Ghana. I think that's what we're calling it. I think that's what we're calling it. And I will say earlier this year, I planned a trip to Paris. And when we announced that trip to Paris, the first comment I got was, I already been to Paris. I want to go to Ghana. We heard that from a lot of people. And so we immediately thought about, still, of course, proceeding with the Paris trip, which was a success, but starting the ball rolling in terms of determining what a Ghana trip would look like. And when I started reaching out and letting people know that that was something that we wanted to do, and when I say we, I mean the Washington Fisk Alumni Association, your name came up quite a bit as, you should go to Angela. She does this professionally. She plans it. She really, has brought lots of Fiskites there. Can you talk about what the Fisk connection is to Ghana? And then even beyond Fisk, like that HBCU connection as well.
Yeah, so I'll start with the HBCUs because as I mentioned, Ghana's president, Kwame Nkrumah, was a graduate of Lincoln University. And Ghana has been home to a lot of Black expats Black Pan Africanists who are in support of Ghana's independence movement and support of a broader pursuit of freedom and justice for Black people in the whole world globally. And so HBCUs were part of that, right? B.E.B. Du Bois is a Fisk graduate and a Fisk alum, and he is buried. So he moves to Ghana towards the end of his life. He, his resting place is in Ghana too currently. So we have the W.E.B. Du Bois Center right in the middle of Accra, where it's a museum now, and it's really just Du Bois's former home while he was in Ghana, which is a gift to him from President Kwame Nkrumah, who Du Bois came to Ghana at the invitation of Kwame Nkrumah and got there to finish some work around the African American Encyclopedia and ultimately died in Ghana. So going to his burial place is a place that if I have Fiskites in my group, we're always going to put that on the itinerary because we as Fiskites know and love and cherish the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. And it's cool to see his resting place. A couple Fiskites that recently joined our trip, particularly Dr. Kayla Elliott and Dr. Crystal DeGregory, came and they brought a Fisk flag to place in the room of Dr. Du Bois's coffin. So yeah, anytime Fiskites are going to the Du Bois Center and they see that Fisk banner, know that that was us. That was us. That was Army's group who put the Fisk banner in the Dr. Du Bois's resting place. Similarly, the Fisk Jubilee Singers have recorded an album in Ghana called Sacred Journey. And
Okay.
they did that live. It's a live recording at Cape Coast Castle, which is in the central region of Ghana. I would be making up the year if I said the year, maybe 2007.
Okay. So Dr. Kwame was there.
Yes, Dr. Kwame. So they recorded Sacred Journey in Ghana, and that's part of our legacy as Fisk guys. And speaking of Dr. Kwame, Dr. Paul Kwame, who the late great uh, Dr. Paul Kwame, former director of the Fisk Jubilee Singers, he's also Ghanaian, and
Mm-hmm.
he came, born and raised in Ghana, and came to Fisk for school, and was a member of the Jubilee Singers, and went on to lead that esteemed group. So there's so many different connections between Fisk and they're growing, right? I think I can count myself as part of the Fisk Ghana
Yeah.
legacy, right? Can I just do that? I'll add myself
Yeah.
in.
What
Uh,
it's a gift. Yeah.
yeah, as the kind of emerging contemporary legacy. So as I mentioned, I studied abroad at University of Ghana through Fisk University, myself and six other Fiskites. And so I feel like we're continuing to maintain that bridge between Fisk University and Ghana. I know that Fisk is also has some initiatives where they're bringing some current students to Ghana as well. So I'm excited to be a part of this ongoing legacy and to bring the Washington Fisk Alumni Association to Ghana so that they can see what Fisk looks like in Ghana and what footprint we have
Mm-hmm.
on the nation. Yeah.
Okay. So, with that announcement and that connection, what do you think our trip is going to look like? What should we tell people? How do we get them excited? What should we tell
Gosh, guys.
them?
So I've been calling this experience Ever on the Altar.
Okay.
Why am I getting choked up? Because okay, so first off, Fisk is a really special place to me, and Ghana is a really special place to me. So I take it seriously. I take this responsibility seriously to like craft an experience that will honor, to the level that it deserves, how I feel about Fisk and how I feel about Ghana, and bringing those
Hmm.
two things together. I know Ghanaians, and I know Fiskites, and I know Fiskites that are Ghanaians. And so what does it look like to truly, you can call it a love letter, like devote a love letter to Ghana and to Fisk in this way that marries these two, one an institution, one a nation, both kind of moving towards the same goal of black liberation, and celebrating blackness,
Hmm.
celebrating how far we've come and celebrating how where we're going, right, our future. And so what does it look like to acknowledge the histories, both the exciting histories and also the troubled histories of both the institution and the nation?
Hmm.
And what does it look like to understand where the paths intersect, And what does it look like to craft a vision, an optimistic vision of the future for both institutions, right? Because Fisk guys love Fisk,
Mhm.
and I'm one of them, right? And also Ghanaians love Ghana. And so both, I feel like both peoples are at the same place right now, which is we have this place or these people, this institution that's really important to us, that we cherish deeply, that we want to see sustained in a healthy way. And
Mhm.
what does the future look like, and what is our role in the future in developing and making and manifesting that future that we know it could be. So I hope that Fisk guys kind of see Fisk on that journey, and they also see Ghana on that journey. So I
Mhm.
can't promise that everything will be perfect, right? Just like we go to Fisk and it's like everything's not perfect, right? We see opportunities, but we see the progress. To kind of share Ghana's story as a nation. Ghana was only got independence in 1957.
Mhm.
It's a very young country. And so to see Ghana's path in pursuit of a democracy, a peaceful democratic nation, one that was one of the very first to get independence and be a leader and inspire other nations to also, other black nations to also obtain their independence from colonial powers, right? So even though we're not talking necessarily about colonialism in the context of FIS, we are talking about these external powers that challenge the integrity of our foundation. And so, I just want to kind of show the parallels between Fisk and Ghana and show the potential between Fisk.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's exciting. So, for everyone listening, we've been working on it. We have a great agenda that Angela's put together, and our intention is to go to Ghana February 2027. So, that gives you the whole year to pay, to save, to plan, to do all the things that Angela mentioned, getting the visa, getting that yellow fever shot, getting all that in place, getting your spending money, deciding who your roommate's going to be, bringing your friends, your line sister, your line brothers, your classmates, even friends outside of Fisk University. We Fisk family and friends, everyone's invited because our goal is to use our trip not only as a means to do fellowship, but a means to just broaden our experiences. We also treat our trips as fundraisers, so that a portion of your our trip will go towards our scholarships, but most importantly, we'll also be supporting Black businesses. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you made Black business support a priority, and even the thought of going to another country and there not all be Black businesses. Like, what does that look like for you in your planning?
Yeah, so just a little bit about Honest Group and the actual kind of logistics of a trip with us. Usually, including for this experience, we host people for 10 days in Ghana. And I think it's hard to carve out 10 days for yourself, but I think that's the perfect amount of time to be able to get to Ghana, adjust to the time zone, and experience all the things that we have planned for you and really take it in, and also have some time for yourself to relax, enjoy Ghana, explore on your own, etc. So in those 10 days, we go to three different regions. We start off in the greater Accra region. We also go to the central region, and then we move to the Volta region. The Volta region of Ghana is where my family is from. And so we get to visit my ancestral grounds of the places where my grandfathers and great grandfathers were lived and tended to the land there, which is really exciting. And in doing all of this, we provide all the transportation, we provide the airport transfers, we provide the tour guides, the excursions, all of those things are covered. And we do, when we do that, we are supporting, we're pretty much really really close to being at 100% black owned businesses. And so we really strive to make sure that the vendors that we use, the restaurants that we patronize, all of the activities, everything is surrounded by supporting a black owned business in Ghana. Now you might think, isn't Ghana just already all black? Yes, but
Mm.
because of structures of stratification, not all of the businesses in Ghana are black. A lot of the capital that comes to open businesses and invest in businesses is foreign capital. So we try to find opportunities to support local small businesses typically, but not always. Some are really large. We can feel confident that the money and the capital will circle or be recycled or cycle back into the economy. So that's something that's really important to us because, as I mentioned earlier, we actually care about Ghana. This is not just a destination for us. This is home for us. This is where
Mm.
our families live. This is where we hope our families will return. And so we want to sustain Ghana's economy, and really build up Ghana's tourism infrastructure in the way that Ghanaians themselves can keep it going, can build upon it, and can benefit from it. And so we try to do our best to not support businesses that we think might send the money out of the country, but make sure that people are employing Ghanaians, for example, empowering Ghanaians to start their own businesses. We also work with a lot of small artisans, a lot of them women, who help with things that just throughout the trip, and there are a lot of little surprises that I don't like to reveal, but people get a welcome box at the beginning of the trip, for
Mhm.
example, and that welcome box is full of goodies that are mostly from these small artisans. So there are lots of little ways in which we make sure that we take care of folks while also taking care of the folks over there. And we do that by supporting the businesses that support them.
So we've talked about quite a bit. I think we've laid the groundwork, kind of explaining why Ghana and specifically from your personal perspective, why it matters so much to you. But what are some other things that we may not have touched on that you would like to cover? I just wanted to give you some time.
Hmm. I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah.
I'm really excited to work with you. I've just been really impressed on your responses, how thorough you've been, and the agenda that you set forth for our trip is really, I think, going to be one that the attendees will remember for the rest of their lives. So thank you for that. But for someone who is looking for not a group trip, but something that may not be what we're doing, how can they get in touch with you? What other services do you provide? Like, just kind of share that.
Sure. So mostly you can find us on social media on Instagram at underscore Onyx Group. That's ONYXGROUP. And that's the best way to find us. Send us a message. And I also have an email that people can reach out to me on, which is info at onyx, ONYX dash GRP.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Angela, thank you for your time. Thank you for the great conversation. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to do this coming year, but most importantly, our trip to Ghana in 2027. Everyone, again, my name is Kerene Tayloe. I am the host of Plans Are My Love Language, and you can find me at Plans Are My Love Language on Instagram and here on YouTube at KT Loves LUVS Plans. So thanks for tuning in. And Angela, thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye.